morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is my cat. This is very important for this presentation because my daughter said I want to work a cat into it and I ran out of time. So this is me putting a cat into my presentation. So that if she calls any of you and asks, the cat was here. Put it right there so it's out of the way. Not distracted. You know, one of the things that I would always like to do with my kids is, do a little game like pretend. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to pretend a little bit. Let's imagine that you're the new CIO of an organization where the IT projects are struggling. They're faced with budget overruns, delays, and in some cases, outright failure. What you realize you need to do is improve IT's relationship with the business. As you can see with the pitchforks and torches, it's not really very good. Unfortunately, you're kind of afraid that your current methods aren't up to the challenge. What you really need is you need a collection of individuals willing to work in unconventional ways to help you achieve this goal. Unconventional goal. These are the graphics. Well, my name is Mike Jordan. I'm the solution architect for the ServiceNow platform. And today I want to show you how the ServiceNow delivery team is basically facing this challenge today. You know, when I was given the opportunity to become the solution architect for this platform, I was a little hesitant. I was like, yeah, I like doing custom development, downloading libraries, building everything by hand, taking about 6 hours to put a dot on a page. It's really kind of cool. Service eventually. That's how I like to describe it. But I was attracted to the idea of something new, and it was kind of interesting, and there was some transitional organizational changes, so it seemed like an interesting opportunity. Besides, I thought, I'm going to go over there, disappear in a cube, do techie, architecty things, and maybe somewhere by pure accident create an application. So I thought that would be kind of cool. Unfortunately, when I got there, I started working with the team members over there. I realized that it wasn't really architecture that they needed most critically, even though I did recognize certain areas where we could broaden the use of the tool with some. What they really needed was some way to organize the work that they had, because it was coming in from emails that said, hey, could you possibly do this in ServiceNow? Or a spreadsheet that had nothing on it other than, blip, here you go, can you do something with this? I'm like, yeah, I can send it back to you and say, what are you talking about? So I really needed to organize it because I couldn't get my head wrapped around what they were all actually doing. And it's not that they weren't organized in what they were doing, it's just that there wasn't this team, there wasn't this organized flow of work, it was all kind of all over the place. What I realized that I was going to need to do to deliver on this goal is I was going to need to basically find a way to create a delivery pipeline where I can bring project works in and build some kind of pipeline where we can chop it up into small pieces and then just start building the system incrementally. But I needed to go and do it differently than we currently do. In custom development, we take one project, we work on it for 8 months, we transition it, we give it to the business, we say, here, it's all yours, and then we go work on the next one. So basically, we can do 2 projects every 4 years or something along those lines. And that wasn't really going to work for the goals we were trying to achieve. What I needed to be able to do is take multiple projects in parallel and then just start streaming work through it and basically communicate, here's where our bottlenecks are, here's where we're missing resources, and then basically let people shift priorities and then just assign work, break it up into pieces. And the idea is, can we create a flow of work that would allow us to achieve some of these goals of delivering value to the business faster? So in order to do this, I wanted to kind of come up with these 3 driving principles. The first of which is I wanted to adopt a more agile mindset. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and give you the whole straw man argument of agile versus waterfall, because nobody ever does waterfall on purpose. It just happens to you. And it's just kind of boring anyway. The agile mindset that I have here isn't about user stories, Scrum, Epics, or whatever. While we use those as tools, that's not really what I'm trying to get at. What I'm looking for is the core philosophy of it. And the way I'm defining it here is first of all, we're going to live with just barely good enough. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to requirements artifacts, we're going to do just barely good enough to get us to the next step, to paint a picture to the business or whoever so that they can get a better picture as to what the system should actually do. When it comes to architecture, just barely good enough is let's just go ahead and build a solution that works and not try to overthink it or over-engineer it, because 20 years of building software, I can almost tell you, you put the word enterprise in front of an application and it immediately gives a person an excuse to overly complicate the architecture before they even start on the project. Now the other thing that I wanted to do with this agile mindset is I wanted to be able to be willing to learn as we go. That means that it's okay that we don't have a lot of agile development experience. It's okay that we're unsure about things before we get started. Because what I can't do is I can't wait till we all go to Agile training and then spend a week in Las Vegas learning how to do Agile stuff, and then other things in Las Vegas that I won't mention. I can't wait for that. I also cannot do like what we did a few years ago, just spend 2 years in an SDLC committee every couple of weeks talking about a bunch of zombie-oriented templates where we fill them out, all the little lines, create these documents. Where you got to scroll through 3 pages before you get to anything useful. You've got the heading page, you've got this page intentionally left blank, don't ask me why. You get the document history, and then finally you get the about me, which just says this document is a requirements document, you already knew that. And then finally you get to something useful, possibly, if you've made it that far and not fallen asleep. So in any case, I wanted to be able to move past that. And so just barely good enough doesn't mean low quality. It just means we can get rid of the fluff, and live with just good enough. Hey, that rhymed. Now, the third part of this agile mindset that I have is when we're faced with 2 good choices, we're going to pick the one that delivers the most immediate value to the business. And this can be kind of tricky to know. But typically what will happen is we'll have a strategic choice over here. We get strategic choices all the time in IT, but they typically don't render themselves to immediate value. They'll pay themselves later down the line. Right now, I need to deliver value now, so I'm going to defer some strategic choices in favor of immediate value to the business, and I'm going to incur the technical cost of those strategic choices onto myself. This is the goal here, because my goal is to get buy-in and value from management and the business first, and then look at those strategic costs at a later time. And it's just going to be something that I have to deal with and weigh and decide which one is the most valuable. So that's kind of where our mindset is. So the next thing I want to do is I want to view our work as products and not projects. Projects are like, they're born and they die. They begin and they end. And that kind of elicits a contractual arrangement, if you will, that's almost adversarial in a lot of ways. I'm going to work on your project till it's done and then bye. It's yours. If you have problems with it, send a ticket to somebody. Maybe we'll do it eventually. What I want to do instead is view the work as products, meaning that I want to build a relationship with a business that says, you have something that you need that's of value to your business. Let's treat it as a product. Let's get something out there of value to you quickly. And then if you need to change it as you go, just put it in the work queue. I'm going to just treat it as other work. As long as somebody else doesn't have more political priority than you do. I mean, like Jack Marchbanks likes to say, we're a politically driven environment. That I can't control that either. But what I can do is create a work queue that says, when I inevitably have gaps of time happening on a project, which we always do, I can take your work, give it to somebody, and push it out. That means you don't have to be afraid that you have to get everything right the first time out. And I'm not going to use the dreaded phase 2 on you. Phase 2 is the recycle bin of software development. It means that we're not possibly going to achieve phase 1. We're going to throw it into phase 2. It sounds like we're going to do it, but we never actually get to phase 2. It's obvious because we can barely finish phase 1. So we're not going to use that idea. We're going to just basically let you own your system, let you change your mind. And again, there's risk to this, and that's where I'm going to just take that burden on and see whether or not we can deliver value. If it doesn't work, what I'm going to be able to at least do is see where our bottlenecks are and where we need to address change. And finally, what I want to do is maximize the work in progress. This means that I need to have a way to keep work queues full and find out where we need more work to be pushed forward. We always need to have people working. This doesn't mean I need a bunch of people working overtime or weekends necessarily. That's not my call to make. It just means I need to ensure that I don't have people sitting around waiting for work, twiddling their thumbs. I need to address that by building a queue of work that they can always draw from. I need to basically identify where the bottlenecks are and fix those. And one of the ways that I want to be able to do this is I need some way to visually track the work. I need a way to see where the work is. This is kind of a scaled back screenshot of the tool we're using in ServiceNow. And in true Agile fashion, we're using this, and it's not even in production yet, it's in development. Ordinarily, I would say don't ever do that. However, I'm intentionally changing some of my philosophy here. I'm accepting the risk that we could lose this data because I understand that it doesn't matter. Right now, it's of more value to me to build this process than it is to preserve these work elements that we've defined. Because if we can rebuild this, there will be a cost, but waiting until it's out into production would be a much higher cost right now. So what this lets me do is see things that are on hold. And a lot of these are on hold because of me. Because I was working on my presentation. I'm working on it right now. This is our ready for development queue. This is the one I need to keep full. This is where developers can say, oh, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do that. And the skill sets may vary. They may not be able to. There may be people that are better fit for it. But the idea is these chunks of work are small enough to fit in what we call our sprint or our iterations. We already in our cadence, we're always in 2 weeks. We're always breaking the work into 2-week chunks. And that's really just a way of measuring progress. It's not so much a, hey, we're working in sprint, blah, blah, blah. Some people are interested in that. All I'm trying to do is create a way to organize the work and a way to chunk it up into pieces that can be manageable. And so basically all these little cards up here, we're calling them stories. That's not a perfect definition. It's not there's a lot of different ways people would call stories. I'm living with imperfect to get this thing in place, and then we'll get to perfect later as we start to learn how we're doing it. Work in progress is things that are being coded right now. Look at all that. Woo! I think it's all Chevys. Because basically what happened early on is I was getting together with Kathy and Amrita, and we got into a room and we say, how can we organize this work and give it all to Chevy? But in any case, we were trying to build this process and get some kind of draft structure up so the team could get used to seeing it. And what I want to do is make this visual. Right now, it's you got to go to the website and kind of log in or whatever. What I want to do is make this very visible to the team and a very living, breathing part of what we do. Team members can move things to the different states. They can drag and drop it, and doing so causes it to change its state. So, we got ready for QA testing. Those are kind of somewhat self-explanatory, but again, if I have this full and this full, then I know I need more QA resources because they're obviously too much work, they can't keep up. Or if this is full and this is empty, I gotta go find out who stole my QA resource. And then I gotta go have me a conversation with some project managers. Actually, it's more like I stay in their queue, I talk to them constantly until they finally give up and give me the resource. I've never done that. So anyway, you get the idea. It's a visual way to track the work. And what I want to do is get the team in here. I don't want this to disappear in some locker somewhere where only project managers are allowed to do something with it. Because then what it does is it becomes this toy of PMs that nobody else sees, that has low value. This is people communicating in real time honestly about what they're working on. And then if they're doing it wrong, let's address how they're doing it wrong, teach them how to do it right, and empower them to use it. That way, they will populate it. The last thing you want to do is have something else you're supposed to enter data into that you have no idea if anybody reads, toggle. You have no idea if anybody pays any attention to, toggle. And you have no idea if anybody does anything with, toggle. I don't even do it anymore. I don't know if anybody else does. So anyway, this is kind of where I'm at with this delivery pipeline thing. But in order to deliver on this, I'm going to need something that will allow me to achieve these goals. I need some mechanism. Custom development really wouldn't work. The reason is because you're coding everything by hand, and because you're doing that much work manually, it's very difficult in custom development to context switch across different projects, if you will. Because there's so much that you might have different tech stacks working on different projects, even if you're if you're lucky enough to get the same technology stack, yay. But a lot of times you don't, at least in the past. And even if you are using the same tech stack, this particular tech lead may be taking things in a slightly different direction than you're used to, and that can be really hard to context switch between systems. That may still happen to us here, but I'm going to go on the assumption that it'll be minimal, and we're going to address that when it becomes a problem. But in this particular case, we're asking the question, why are we using ServiceNow to implement this delivery pipeline? Well, I'd actually like to change this and reword this to say, let me show you what I can do in 3 minutes in ServiceNow with no custom coding, out of the box, ready to go. It could go live. 3 minutes. Great. You can hold me to it. Now, I'm not actually going to do it because I was trying to avoid technical difficulties, but what I have here is a screen capture of me doing it from my laptop, real time. I didn't speed this up. And I'm going to show you what's happening. It's intentionally simple, and that's okay. You can say, so what? What a worthless piece of crap. It's just a simple to-do list application that stores data in the system. Let me walk you through. So the first thing in ServiceNow we do typically is create a table. And it's just a point and click. I didn't have to call a DBA, give them a SQL script, and ask them for permission. They just did it. I'm just going to give it a name. Look, you can see the typos. It still takes only 3 minutes, even though I'm making mistakes. So that's just putting it in the navigation menu where it shows up. And then I'm clicking a button here to generate an auto key so that they all get a nice unique identifier that looks almost readable. And then, boom. Now I've created a relatively empty table. At least I haven't added anything to it, but the system has auto-generated some things. Now I'm going to go to the form designer, and I'm going to basically say, hey, I want to build an input form on top of this table. Let's go find the table that I just created. Boom, there it is. Click. Wow, look at all this custom coding I'm doing. Here, I can go to this section, and now I can just pick data types, and as I'm building the form, I'm also defining the table structure. And it's pretty straightforward. It's not that complicated, as it should be. And so I'm just basically creating the fields. I can define length values or accept some of the defaults. And I can make it mandatory so that you have to populate it, and the system will automatically feed into that and show required asterisks in red, like we all like to see, and do some of that little error checking. It'll enforce the data type structure. Again, I don't have to code it. I'm just going to get it. It's just mine for free. Somebody else did it. Oh man, it's so much fun watching it. It's more fun watching it than it was actually doing it. So this is just a to-do list. You know, I got an ID, a name for the task, a description. Then I put a little completed flag that says, yeah, I did it, I didn't. And then you got to put a little due date over there that says, when should I do this? For me, I just make it way out there. Everything will be later because I'm working on my presentation.
Phase 2.
Phase 2, right? Right. So down here, I'm adding this section. Obviously, you can do some section-based work. And again, this is kind of simple, I understand, but one of the points I'm trying to make here is adding this audit information. These columns, I never added into the table. It did it for me. And it's not a big, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but the system automatically adds a created by, updated by timestamp, which means you get automatic audit information when you create a new table. I would have to physically go and change the system to tell it not to do that. And I'm not 100% sure that I can. That means that you automatically have those timestamps that indicate whether or not data has changed built into the framework. You don't have to code it. The system also not only defines the fields, but it adds the logic for populating it as well. Remember that part about not having to code it? And there we go. Save the form, which also created the table and populated it with the columns that we had. Now I'm going to come over here to the navigator, go to my little link that I added to there for my little form, and click on the new button, create a record. Oh man, this is just such a beautiful form, right? Yeah? Actually, it is very simple and plain. I get that. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But basically, I get these little nice little widgets for entering dates and so forth. I get this list view, and there you go. 3 minutes. I created an app. I populated with the record, and I'm done. This could go live right now. I could have a QA person test it. They would mainly be testing how ServiceNow works. They would be doing their testing. Or maybe they would be like verifying that the length of the fields are correct or whatever. But really, this is ready to go. I could send this live. But let's look at what we really got for that 3 minutes. 3 minutes worth of work. What did we get? We get an enterprise-grade database table. This is not a SharePoint list. Yeah, SharePoint list. You know how enterprise-ready those are. This can hold hundreds of thousands of records. We have, our incident table has over 150,000 records. So it's fully ready to handle however many records you choose to put in. You want to add indexes to it later? Go to the table, click a button that says, yes, index this column, because things are slow. We also get that form, obviously. That was pretty obvious, that's what we were doing. So you get the logic for add, edit, update, delete functionality for free. Remember, you didn't have to code it? The only code you do not have to test is code you didn't have to write. So you don't really have to test it. It's done. Did I mention 3 minutes? Remember that. That's going to be a key. You also get role-based access to the table and the structures. You can basically give people read, create, whatever, and the system kind of creates these by default. And you get this list view. And here's another little video. I love these little screen capture things. I was playing with a free tool that I wasn't supposed to install on my machine. So you get the normal filtering, sorting, and then you also get some group by functionality. Oh, that's cool. Look at how it's all grouped. And look at this. You get a very powerful expression tool that allows you to filter the data down as narrow as you want. So basically, you can create if, and, or type expressions and filter the data down to whatever you really need. And again, this is free. And this is the other thing, too, that I think is really cool. You get inline editing inside this table for free. If you want to bulk edit records, you can do it right in here. If you want to go and say, I need to mark these 10 records as completed, you can go click, 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 say update all, it'll take you to the update form. You type in completed, and all 10 of those records will get updated, and all you had to do was one operation. So that was really cool. I know, it's not very exciting, but wait, I'm not done. Can I mention this is 3 minutes? 3 minutes. All right.
Go with 3 hours though.
Here's something else that you get for free in this little thing. You can export up to 10,000 records from this view into Excel. The export process will honor whatever filtering conditions you added. So if you wanted to go in and say, I need to get all the records from 5 years ago, or this condition was true, you could export it out, and it would send it out to an Excel spreadsheet, or a PDF, or XML, or JSON. And again, I'd like to mention that you get this for free. Well, you don't get it for free, there's a license for this product, but you get it for free. Oh. Actually, did that show the export, or did I replay the last video again? Oh, no, it did. There it is. Excel, ooh, generating, yeah. Ooh, look, green, it worked. Sweet! Oh. It doesn't actually format it that way, full disclosure. I did that myself to make it look prettier. It actually is kind of all scrunched up. You gotta go do the auto format the columns. But you do get all your columns in place. And then something else that I'm not showing here, because it's more of an admin function, that you also get for free. You can actually take an Excel spreadsheet of this table and upload records into it. I've actually uploaded 10,000 records in it when I was testing. And here's the nice part, it's an easy upload. You go there and you say, I want to upload some records. It takes you through a little wizard that says, hey, would you like me to generate an Excel template for you that you can use to do that with? I said, yes, I would like that. And it generated one. And the first page was a nice little help screen that said, here's how you use this, you moron. And then the next one was a formatted column that allowed me to populate all of the data that I needed. And here's the amazing part, it worked. It actually worked. You could also basically use it to update records. You could export a set of records, go into Excel, if that's what you like to do, change a whole bunch of the values, upload it back, and update all those records. 10,000. Now, it's an admin function, so I didn't really show it here because all the business people would be like, ooh, no, we don't have to do that. That would be sad. I don't know. Because, well, it would be like SharePoint, where we have 4 terabytes of stuff and nobody looks at it. Okay. So what else did we get for free? I'm not done yet. Did I mention 2 minutes? You also get the ability to attach documents to your records. In fact, I would have to do work to not allow you to do this. You get it. It's free. You can add multiple documents immediately to the form and access them directly. And it's really pretty easy to use. Look at that. That's a nice diagram that I saw off the web. You can't read it very well, so there's no copyright issues. Okay, now am I done? Am I?
Probably not.
No, I'm not. Guess what you also get for free? You get a mobile app. You get a mobile app that allows you to update this to-do list. This is a real-time picture of me using my phone, accessing the table I just created, and I'm gonna go put some to-do items in there. Check it out, this is my phone. It's right here. I don't have it on there. But this is really sweet. You get an automatic mobile app without having to do any work. And it works. And I don't know if I know this, watch this, this is cool. You get to upload documents through the mobile app. Hello, collector. How much are you paying for your product? Add an attachment. And look, ironically, what I'm actually attaching is a picture of the mobile app. It's kind of like a mirror and a mirror and a mirror. So, there you have it. 3 minutes, you get the list view, you get the editable form, you get the mobile app, you get data import export, all with no coding, and basically it's pretty much fully tested for you already. Yeah, but I know it's not Angular or anything, but kind of cool, right?
Shots fired.
All right. Sorry, there it goes. So, I've been building enterprise apps for 5 years, and almost all the apps that I've ever built can fall, the functionality typically falls into these kinds of groups. You need forms on top of database tables. You need reporting. You need document upload management of some kind. You need to be able to have spreadsheet-like list views of the records so that users can see them. You need a pageable view, because for some reason somebody always likes to view 1 million records, 1 page at a time. And then you also, there's a couple of other elements to it as well. Typically you need, oh man, I can't remember. I'll get to the slide now. But let's talk about reporting real quick. So in ServiceNow, they have some tools for building customizable reports. The first one is really just this list view. This is really kind of a report level interface, because you can add some very robust filtering conditions and get a kind of list view, and you can export it out as a spreadsheet or PDF. They also have bar chart reportings and line chart. They have like timeline series. They have calendaring reports. They have sparkle lines, whatever that is. They have all sorts of them. And we also have the ability to create customizable dashboards in there. I don't have any idea what this means, but it's really pretty. So basically you just have this widget-based look where you can add different forms and provide, real-time update information to executives that like pretty charts like that. Now, and then obviously this is the expression-based tool that comes with all the reporting. And I'm just this is just kind of a mock-up. I'm showing you how you can really fine-grain your search conditions on the records that you're trying to see. So, reporting is there. I'm intentionally being very brief with it because while I'm just letting you know that it's there and it's real time, but the reality is most reporting tools that you have already are probably going to have a lot of functionality you're attracted to. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But you also need business logic. How in ServiceNow do we deal with the scenario where I just can't click a few buttons in 3 minutes? I actually need to add some type of logic that's just not directly there. Well, we've got workflow tools built into the product that allows us to do either simple workloads, like this one. I don't know why we want to delete a user from Azure. I'd probably delete them all. And then you have this over here, these built-in activities that you can use to if-then-else logic and a nice visual grid. This is what I like about this too is it's kind of a self-documenting model for the workflow. Or you can have complex workflows like this. This looks like a Wally workflow actually. It's not, but I know. The ServiceNow platform also provides ways to do other custom logic. Like the server-side programming language is JavaScript based. Hey, that moved. So you basically have the ability to do like some before-after logic when you're submitting a form. You can basically do some pre- and post-validation on the data. You can also do some validation or some modification of the data when you're loading it from the database and right before you render it. You can do some calculated values if you want to. They also have the ability to do event processing on the server as little chunks of scripts. They can either be scheduled or based on some kind of other triggered event that has happened on the server. In other words, you could have a before rule that says, hey, this happened, fire out this event, which in turn could then launch off a workflow. And background scripts can run that can do automated tasks. So if you have inevitably those apps that have these scheduled processes where we pull millions of records out of the database like they always like us to do and throw it somewhere else, instead of asking them to use their really efficient tools for that. And then lastly, it has the ability to create these custom REST APIs, meaning that you can actually expose REST endpoints from your own products using this logic to basically have functionality that's exposed like we normally do. So in that particular case, if you wanted to build a custom page that wasn't using the form builder, you could basically leverage the table building tools and the REST API and add some custom logic that you could then call from your custom JavaScript. Of course, at that point, you'd be throwing mobile out the window because you're responsible for building that yourself. So we're on this platform. What about scalability and monitoring capabilities? Well, it's cloud-based, it's cloud-hosted. Support is awesome. We call them, we'll say something's broke, and they do it. And suddenly it's not broke anymore. It's really not that, it's close to being that simple. It really is. Each customer is given their own dedicated instance of the ServiceNow platform. You're not shared. You're not like Salesforce.com, where if you pay this much money, you only have 1,000 people fighting you for CPU and resources. And if you really pay super premium, you have only 200 idiots who's messing with your stuff. It's truly isolated. The whole platform is all you. The data is all you. Nobody else is touching it but you. And the ServiceNow platform itself has built-in tools for monitoring CPU usage and memory of the platform that you have. You can go directly in and see what's going on. And they also have built-in capabilities to show slow-running SQL queries or slow-running scripts. So within the tool itself, they have their own troubleshooting mechanisms that can say, hey, you know, Joe Bob created this infinite looping script over here that runs every noon. You can easily identify it and then go in and troubleshoot it, disable it probably, or you know, ask Wally why he did that. I kid, Wally's actually a really sharp guy, but you know, sometimes he runs a little rogue. So that, all that was kind of ServiceNow out of the box. Now let's go kind of beyond out of the box. You know, what do we go with? Beyond forms and tables is where you can go when you want to do custom UIs. Meaning, you can basically take the Angular framework, build your UI that talks to a REST endpoint, sub it out, throw it into here, and you can talk to the REST endpoints that you've implemented inside the ServiceNow platform. The value there is you could leverage that really cool editing experience that Alex Stevens very elegantly showed us the other day, where he was able to fix his own errors in real time. But leverage the ServiceNow platform for some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, you know, so you don't have to worry about, am I going to use Internet Framework 6 or Hibernate 12, or am I going to run a custom SQL, or am I going to do something else in between there that everybody will argue about, that that's the wrong way to do it because it's so old and whatever. How about reporting? Well, I mentioned earlier that most organizations already have reporting tools that they know and love, and you won't be able to take out of their whole day. So in this particular case, the ServiceNow platform has multiple options for exporting data out of itself. It actually has its own custom ODBC driver that you can install on your desktop and directly connect to their system through an HTTP endpoint, meaning that you don't have to open the firewall. It'll just use HTTP as the protocol. And you can issue SQL queries directly against the tables inside the product. You can use that for data integration with your reporting tools. You can actually just use that as the means by which the tool builds its own models off of. You can use that mechanism to directly connect Excel from your desktop to ServiceNow. I know, I've done it, it was cool. But usually what you'll probably do for large chunks of data is just have ETL processes. And in that particular case, the ServiceNow platform has lots of options for either FTP, secure FTP, REST API. We can export data. We can basically go and execute PowerShell scripts through the mid server to extract data and transform it into the other system. What about the beyond out-of-the-box modules? You know, ServiceNow platform is a module-based platform. What that means is that there are folks out there building stuff on the platform and packaging it as modules that you could either buy or in some case get for free. It depends on whether or not you want it to work or not. And the ServiceNow platform, and this is one of the ways that it kind of differentiates itself there, is that it's very easy to do. It's just an XML export. You can throw it into your app, your server and see what it looks like and say, I don't really like that, just delete whatever it was that it added. But the interesting thing here that I would see is if state agencies were using shared licenses across the ServiceNow platform, you could basically have resources such as consultants or whatever building these applications for you in the platform, packaging them as modules, and then sharing them across agencies. Imagine building a TMC system on the ServiceNow platform and then sharing it across all 50 states and only having to pay one contractor to build it for you instead of 50, or buying the, well, I won't even go into the cost of, it'll be like a $9 million product to get one module, $600,000 a year licensing, and oh, by the way, if you want the enterprise licensing, that's another $200,000 a piece, and if you want them to work, it's $400. I'm sorry, I'm not actually that cynical, I'm just drawn that way. So, one of the things I wanted to do here too is differentiate this from SharePoint, because there's a lot of ways we can compare it. Yeah, workflows, I can do that in SharePoint. And whatever. I tried to do SharePoint development a few years back. I really gave it a good try, hard, really. I went and researched it. I built local virtual machines. I installed Active Directory domain servers. I installed SharePoint and all of its search engine stuff. Finally, thinking I was going to start building things, until I realized that SharePoint's publishing model is manually recreate all the steps you did in dev to test, and then manually recreate them in production. Like, what? What? And then they're like, oh, you know what? We fixed that. Here's a packaging model. Oh my God. It was the most convoluted mess I've ever seen. It was like, you couldn't quite figure out how to package it all, and then it's like, well, yeah, but you need to put it in the web form, and then you need to add the scripts that deploy the thingy, and then you still need to add the custom types manually, because nobody knows how to use the API to recreate content types and list structures accurately. You think that you would. But the clincher for why I was highly recommending we not do it, is our neighbors, ODPS. They actually hired a consultant team for Homeland Security to build a custom app on the SharePoint platform. This is funny. It's funny because it happened to them, not us. So they're like halfway through the product, right? Microsoft consultants are there giving them this really cool framework on SharePoint for custom building things, which they abandoned halfway through the project and said, here's the code. We don't want it anymore. Which should have been a clear indication. Then, when they did the upgrade to SharePoint, they had to completely rewrite it because all the APIs they were using had completely changed, and it didn't work. And they're like, okay, so they basically went to a model that says, if you can't do it out of the box in SharePoint, you ain't doing it. One of the other things I'd like to point out as a differentiator is that SharePoint has a mix-maxed collection of tools. You can use like SharePoint Designer, God forbid. You could use the web editor, content thingy-mabobber. But the ServiceNow platform, all of its tools are built right into the browser. And they're actually pretty powerful. The editing experience, and this is one of the downsides, is not as rich as you would get with a local IDE. That's something that I think we're trying to get to with a lot of tools, but the reality is it's a much richer experience locally. But the nice thing about ServiceNow is, did I mention 3 minutes out of the box, no code? We don't really need the rich editing platform, because the custom coding is going to be in smaller chunks, very isolated pieces. So the tools that we do get are perfect for that. The other thing about ServiceNow that I think is really cool is that everything, and I mean everything, is in a table. It's a relational database structure at its core. The definition of tables is in a table. You want to create a table without using the form designer? You go to the table and you click new table to create a new table. Actually, it's called dictionary, but it wasn't as funny if I said it that way. The cool thing about that too is that all the data is interrelated, so you can run reports on things, you can find stuff in the system, and you can basically, when you want to know where something is running or where a chunk of script is, go to the script table and find it. The downside to that model too is that there's so many tables in there, it can be sometimes difficult to find out where to look. Community is very rich. They have lots of resources on this stuff. Their documentation is phenomenal. They have a documentation on all their different versioning. They actually have really well-defined instructions. There's a component of ServiceNow that allows you to integrate ServiceNow with your internal system in a secure way. It's called the mid server. I used to call it the MIDI server because I was mispronouncing it, and that's how I looked like I didn't know what I was talking about. But basically, it's just a Java-based server that runs in our network, talking to ServiceNow. It's one way. It means it goes up to ServiceNow and says, hey, you got anything for me? And ServiceNow just populates a message to you that says, yeah, I want you to do these things in your internal network because you trust me. And so it grabs that. You can run PowerShell scripts. You can run command line tools. You can do all sorts of things. And that's where you enter Wally land. Actually, what I found was interesting is the ECT team has leveraged that very effectively to do a lot of powerful automation. They built their own PDQ system, PDQ pretty damn quick, and they use it for a lot of their support issues. And I'm actually, and here's the thing, these guys are support guys on the field. They're doing scripting logic, and they're able to deliver a powerful set of functionality with not necessarily having a development background. And they're doing a lot of really cool stuff. So that alone was a big selling point for the product. The other thing that I found is a big selling point too, and this is where SharePoint really was challenging, is getting a development environment running for SharePoint was like, it took me, I don't know, 3-4 weeks to get that local VM running. I think it was running. I accessed the homepage. The ServiceNow platform has a developer program free. You go out there, you register, and you say, I have a personal instance of your product. And they will give you a personal instance of the whole product, your own, full-blown version, no disabled features of the ServiceNow engine. You can't use it for production. If you do, they'll get mad and shut you down. And you got to keep it using it. In other words, if it has 10 days of activity, they'll send it back into the pool because it costs them resources to manage it. But they use it as a way to encourage people to get their understand the platform. I have had no ServiceNow training. Everything I know about it is from that personal development instance. If I didn't have access to that, I'd still be waiting to go to admin training. I would have no idea how to use this platform. As it is now, I learned enough to fake it and do this presentation. The one thing that I did notice also is that when setting up the mid server, they had guided steps. I walked through the steps, step by step, and it worked right out of the box. Everything I did, boom, 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 it connected. I would like to take that as a learning exercise for all the third-party vendors we've ever met. This is how an install and setup should work. Please follow this guide. So anyway, the end result of all this is that the ServiceNow team has a formula for success. Delivery pipeline plus ServiceNow equals business product. Nah, wait. No, I think I'm going to change that. Business partnerships. Nah. Any questions? You want to the name of the chat?
Well, can we actually revise that name to business partnerships in 3 minutes?
We could. You know what? Wait till next time. I'm going to show you what I can do in 6 minutes. 6. Yeah.
So we're at a district level. How do we get started with doing some of the workflows and stuff?
Well, and that's kind of where we're at right now. We're trying to figure out how to leverage all the resources that we have. So we're just like, and so that question hasn't been answered effectively. The challenge that we have right now is that being able to delegate permissions to the point where people can be functional without shooting the entire agency in the foot is kind of challenging.
Yeah.
So, but I think that Charles would really like to see us be able to leverage a lot of those resources to be able to do a lot of this development. And there's a lot of ways that we could leverage that. And I don't know whether that's on me or what at this point, but I think figuring out how to organize our team would help us figuring out how to bring other resources in and let them work on their own stuff as well.
But from our side, we can probably do, like you said, that personal instance and kind of...
If you want to learn the tool, that personal instance is freely accessible.
Yeah.
You can learn it, do whatever you want. Well, it's not production. Don't deploy anything to it that we actually use here at ODA. They would snap our fingers and charge us a lot of money probably.
Yeah.
Well, didn't you say the agile way is to do it in development anyway, so you don't even need production?
Yes, but you have to be willing to live with the system going down permanently. So sure, you could do it that way, as long as you're willing to take that risk. And then you can't come back to us and say, I don't understand, my personal instance is shut down when this is critical to our business. Yes, you're agile. You just accepted that burden now. So solve it. Just in time. Just in time. You're solving it just in time when the system no longer works. You got 3 minutes.
Fortunate
Make it happen.
consultant.
Hey Mike, is IT Now on our desktop and ServiceNow, is that kind of the same?
Yeah,
family?
now it's just, we just branded it that way. It's the same product.
Okay.
I could give the URL to ServiceNow. We couldn't figure out, I guess, how to use it.
The IT Now link, though, will take you to sort of the ServiceNow portal page, rather than directly into like the fully blown ServiceNow tool.
Yeah, so I was showing you that navigator tool. It's just simple, and it's obviously, it has pros and cons to it. It's really, I think, meant more for back-end kind of systems or for super user types. But like I said, the product has, you can create home pages and portal pages that allow you to build widgets, and you can use it to build CMS type systems, or you can use it to build line of business systems where you go to a home page and you're not actually ever accessing that navigator structure. You're just using it like you would any other app. Except for Alex Stevens, is there any other questions? Yeah. So,
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, has there been any talks on like when to use ServiceNow versus when to use traditional development and how that would work?
yeah, they come to me and they were asking my question, and I said, here's my answer. We can do anything you have built, any system you want to build, we can build in this product. It's just a matter of how much you're willing to risk customization. Because to a certain point, you'll have to add some customization to be able to deliver some of the functionality. So how much risk are you willing to bear? That being said, we do it all the time with our custom build apps. We probably have half a dozen of our apps that are hitting end of life because of the frameworks that they're using that need basically completely rewritten. The EXT 3.4 framework is, it stopped supporting browsers at IE 10, and it might work-ish. I think we have to run it in like compatibility mode, which half the internet has to run that way anyway. So, but those are going to come due soon. And unlike the platform here, where we might have a path where we can transition to it, those, you just have to rewrite them. There just is no other option. But they've lasted a long time. We've gotten a lot out of them. So they've shown their value, but at some point, everybody pays the cost of the upgrade.
So you're saying everything should be ServiceNow? Is that what I just heard?
I'm saying that we could make things ServiceNow if we wanted to. There's no, you could do it. The reason to not do it is, I would ask somebody, why do you not want it? Well, I want it to be managed, scalable. Yeah, we already talked about that. Well, yeah, but I want to be able to customize the functionality over what, custom UI pages. 3 minutes? Did I mention the 3 minutes? So.
What about the cost?
The cost of the product is, there's some user licensing and there's some costs, and we're still trying to iron that out. But the reality is that if you add in the custom development overhead cost, most of the licensing costs would probably be amortized out across most of your products. And for, if you can qualify people as what they would call like supply, I don't know what they call it, requesters, where they're just asking for something from ServiceNow, they're submitting a request for something, they're free, they don't have to pay a license at all. It's the people that do the fulfilling on the opposite side that use the majority of the tools that would be. And most of our internal staff members would fall under ITIL users anyway, which we would probably already have some level of license for them. But yeah, you're right, that is another challenge for us. What is the cost? For me, it's nothing, because I don't have to pay bills. So let's build everything in.
It's all free.
Yeah.
Quick question, on the ServiceNow, when you change something, is it a full page refresh or did a new partial refreshes on a page?
Well, it kind of depends on the tools you're using. Their existing model, the form builder that they use, actually uses like an iframe based model. So some of the internal frames might refresh. But the newer portal pages actually uses the previous AngularJS version. So there's a little bit of both. Yeah.
You showed that import ability from Excel. Does it have the import ability from Visio diagrams specifically for workflows?
Not built in, not out of the box. But if you looked hard enough, you'd probably find a module. We needed to do electronic signatures, and we said, how are we gonna do that? So now, and Shay's like, well, there's a module in ServiceNow, let's use it. Done.
Is there a place that lists all those modules?
The internet. That is actually not a question I have a good answer for. I don't know if there's like a one place to, I mean, they have an app store out there that you can go to see what's available. But that might be a question, like, I don't know, Henry, if you app.
Out of the box, there are 54 modules within ServiceNow, and everything will be a own application what we can build.
Yeah, there's 54 modules out of the box, we're using 2. I think we're using 6. By the way, you know, the Agile board I showed there is a module in ServiceNow. Did I mention that?
Is that available for anyone?
Not at the moment. We're beta testing it.
Can that be in 3 minutes?
This is the tool we will be using to track all the project workflow and stuff.
This is, right now, I'm just kind of spearheading a way to manage the ServiceNow workflow, so it's really just ours. Whether we leverage that across other projects is probably going to be whether or not I fall flat on my face and fail to deliver anything. At which point people will just laugh and say, don't ever do that. But see, that's part of the whole Agile model, is learning as we go. We're going to look for where things aren't working and fix them by whatever means we think are necessary, instead of defining a rigid process that is unflexible because we've invested too much effort in it. Did that answer your question, or did I dodge it a little?
My question is because there is no more TFS, no more toggles, so I was wondering if this the tool we will be using down the road to track all of the project workers.
So the answer to that question is yes, but it's a matter of when the portfolio management tool is exported and exactly how the PMO office wants to be able to leverage it. I don't think they have all the answers to that question yet. And maybe when they hire that new custom software development manager, they can dump all that on him. Hey, solve these problems. By the way, don't mess anything up.
Yeah, because at the end of the month or something, we get a request how many hours you guys spend on the project or something. There is no way we can tell because we support multiple.
When I don't know the answer, I just say 80. Nobody ever checks you.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
How frequent does the version upgrade as it being cloud? I'm assuming it's version upgrade.
Oh yeah, their version upgrade process is very aggressive. I think they're moving toward a model of 2 a year. And the support is basically N-1, meaning if you're older than 2 versions behind the live one, you're no longer in support. And they're gonna come to you and say, we're upgrading it. Just do it. So that is gonna be the cost of doing business on a platform like this. And it's another challenge we have to address.
Yeah. So does ServiceNow have a module for the project management?
Yeah, there's a project portfolio management. In fact, actually, one of the reasons why we don't have the Agile module in production right now is because it's part of that, and we're trying desperately to push it out there. I think they're working on some customizations, and that's what's kind of stalling the effort. They're trying to see how they can work their current process into the tool. But if it were up to me, I'd say stick it out there, use it, find out where it hurts, and then start addressing it. That's the delivery pipeline.
Because if we're going to have to keep up with upgrades, you don't want to customize too much.
Oh no, I want to customize it. I love customization because and that's kind of like half of a joke. It's like upgrades are a fact of life. We have to learn how to live with them. So the answer is not don't upgrade, nothing will work. It's how do we address the fact that we have to live with upgrades efficiently and effectively. But that being said, if out of the box it's giving you the functionality in 3 minutes, I'm certainly not going to ask you to rewrite it in any. Never, I won't say it.
So is the idea then that we would use ServiceNow potentially as the springboard for replacing like apps that are no longer current? That need to be rewritten because their platform has expired already.
I actually think, honestly, that the real answer to that will be up to the new software development. All those apps will fall under that management responsibility, and you have to make internal decisions as to how he wants to approach that. If there are cases, if there are cases where it does make a difference, we'll be willing to do that. Good. Everybody good? You ready to leave now and go on with the rest of your life? I'm gonna exhale now because I feel like I've given birth. I've been working on this thing for 1,000 years. Say goodbye to October 17th because that's what the name of this kitty is. It's also a girl. Thank you, everybody.